Bloody Elbow presents the 6th Round Post-Fight Show, which gives you a rundown and full analysis of the bouts that took place on this weekend's UFC event.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the 6th Round Post-Fight Show with me, Zane Simon, and my co-host, as always, as is more often lately, Eddie is out sailing the many seas, I believe, once again. And so I'm joined once again by Dane Fox. Dane, thanks for stepping up and chatting with me about this UFC card that just went down at the Apex facility in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Always a pleasure to join you, Zane.
I definitely appreciate it. We're coming to you guys just after the conclusion of UFC Vegas 31, UFC ESPN 26, UFC Fight Night 843,272, and Islam Makhachev putting it on Thiago Moises for a solid 4 rounds until he got the submission. And, you know, unfortunately, I think kind of the fight that, even if you don't want to take my word for it as a pre-fight analyst, somebody who picked Jeremy Stevens tonight, it's very much the fight the odds said it would be.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any moment that Moises was really in control. He had a couple of moments where, he did have some moments where he pressed Makhachev against the fence.
But even then, he was getting, like, Makhachev, anytime they're in the clinch, Makhachev was chewing him up with knees.
Yep, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Even if Moises had the control, Makhachev was chewing him up. And to Makhachev's credit, he actually did show some respect towards Moises's ground game in particular. Somebody with Makhachev's skill set, you'd think he'd be willing to just dive in there and start doing some damage, a la his much vaunted teammate Habib, former teammate. But he was very methodical with his approach to Moises. No, he was able to work his way to a couple of near finishes. Like, was it the end of round 2 that he almost locked in that armbar?
Yeah. That was the end of round 2.
Yeah. So he was taking his time before he advanced to those positions, showing Moises some respect. But either way, even though he was showing him respect, it was complete and utter domination from Makhachev, which is exactly what we all expected, like you said, based on the betting lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fight where, unfortunately, you know, Makhachev, he comes out of it looking great and putting together a dominant performance, but it really was not that much of a fight. Moises was outgunned standing, he was outgunned in the clinch, he was outgunned on the ground, and it was just kind of a matter of Makhachev slowly breaking him down over multiple rounds to get it was a cool finish in the end. It was, that no hooks rear naked choke on a pretty, well-schooled, talented black belt jiu-jitsu artist, just crushing it like that. It's pretty cool, but it wasn't a competitive match at the end of the day, really.
No, I fully agree with that. The reason why I say that he shows him respect is, like, Makhachev approaches his fights with a certain level of caution. If you think of how Habib goes after his opponents, he's willing to eat some shots before he goes in there and drills them with his own brand of striking, or just recklessly going in for takedowns. With Makhachev, it's much more methodical, and it was very much on display with Moises. I think his early loss to Adriano Martins just instilled into him that he can't be a wild man, and we've never seen that version of him since. But it's almost even scarier, given that he can be that cautious and still be that destructive. Like, looking at the statistics, significant strides, he outlanded him 61-13, and in total strikes, it was 148-18. Just complete and utter domination.
Yeah. No, I mean, you would be hard pressed to find like the biggest success Moises had in that fight was probably the nice double leg he hit on Makhachev.
Yeah.
That somehow instantly got him swept and had Makhachev taking his back.
Yeah. Let's see. That wasn't the first time Makhachev had been taken down. Okay. Sarukian had taken him down, but still, just the fact that Moises did that. Impressive. Oh, yeah. God, that's sad. We're speaking well of one takedown.
Yeah, I mean, you look otherwise, even like round by round, you laid out a pretty convincing that 148-18 stat, even more like 61-13. You're still quintupling up on your opponent there. 148-18 though really does paint a kind of accurate portrait of the fight, and you break it down by round, and you're talking 32-3, and you're like even significant strikes. You're talking 32-3, 12-4, 10-3, 7-3. Like there was no round where Moises could mount any significant offense at all. So
yeah,
dominating performance. Hopefully, they just book Makhachev against somebody better next time around. I mean, he's clearly earned a bigger fight than this.
Oh yeah, he's of a bigger fight than this for a while. You hear guys all the time talk about how other fighters are dodging him and stuff like that. I think it's probably the truth with Makhachev, given the people who have signed the dotted line with him. It doesn't seem to happen much. So I don't know. What, you think maybe Michael Chandler could be a possibility?
Maybe, yeah. I'm sure like he could certainly take a fight like Chandler. It would be great to see. Or somebody, he called out RDA. That's probably a pretty reasonable.
And they just scheduled the fight last year.
Yeah. It's a fight that's already been booked once, so the UFC could pretty easily just be like, well, this guy's been winning, and you're not really actually, even though he might have been listed as being a fill-in for the potential McGregor-Poirier 3 fight, it's not like RDA is actually about to like jump into a title shot after one split decision win over Paul Felder, having come off losses to Leon Edwards and Michael Chiesa at welterweight.
Yeah.
So RDA does seem like it'd be a really good matchup. It seems I also kind of think RDA is probably a lot more willing to just take random fights than Michael Chandler, who is probably trying to play his title contender cards close to the vest for as long as he can pull that off of his Bellator cred.
Yeah. I think I jumped to the likes of Chandler just because I feel like Makhachev should be getting a fight like that at this point, with all due respect to RDA, like you said, he had that run of losses at welterweight before he dropped down, and sure, he looked good against Felder, but Felder had no training camp and is in fact now retired. So
yeah, I mean, the other options would be like Dan Hooker or Beneil Dariush, honestly, and obviously Dariush is on a hell of a run and he's in position for his own bigger things. But with a division like lightweight, like you've already got Poirier for the title, and you've already got Dana White talking about how when McGregor is healed up, he's going to fight Poirier again, seemingly including if Poirier is holding the title at that point.
Yeah, can we just have McGregor go away for a little bit? That's just
he's going to go away for a little bit.
Okay, for a little longer than that, but
okay. Yeah, I mean, for Makhachev, otherwise, I've always wanted to see him fight Gregor Gillespie too. I know that would be going backwards in the rankings one step at this point right now, but
maybe Gaethje.
I mean, yeah, if you're gonna shoot for the top 3 or top 5, then sure, Gaethje or Dariush or Chandler, they're all options. But RDA and Gillespie are probably your more likely fights, just because he's still going to be a dude nobody wants to fight.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
All right, that brings us to our co-main event, though. Women's bantamweight bout: Miesha Tate, Marion Reneau. And Ian, I mean, in the one sense, Mary Renault is 44. She has, for a while now, started hot and slowed down in fights. She has never been a fighter to really press a hard pace or keep a hard pace or really want to trade a bunch on the feet, stuff like that. So this really kind of was just the right fight for Tate to step back into, with the name recognizable enough that fans would be like, oh, wow, that was a quality win. But at the same time, it was a quality win. I know Renault has lost 5 in a row, but I think the biggest thing I was happy to see out of Tate in this comeback fight is she got hit hard a few times, and she didn't shy away from shots. Like, there was at least one right hand that just like plunked her clean on the forehead, and she just like pushed straight ahead through it. And the fighter that was fighting Raquel Pennington 5 years ago, anytime she got hit clean, she would be turning away and trying to like skate out away from the contact. So I think in terms of a fight set up for her to look good, she looked as good as she possibly could have.
There was a lot to like about this.
Yeah.
Now, while I say that I think Tate probably looked comfortable and slick on the feet as she ever has, it should be noted that she's never really looked that great on the feet. So
sure, I mean, me being like she didn't shy away from punches is like a great sign. That tells its own story.
Yes. Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, it's a compliment with an asterisk in the sense that she was never that great, but the fact that she looked better than she ever has and that she's been away for almost 5 years, that's still a good sign, because we should be expecting her to continue to get better in that aspect. So, she talks about wanting to come back and go for a belt. It's still a long shot proposition, but after seeing her tonight, I would have more confidence in her statement there than I would prior to seeing this fight. So,
I mean, I think there's certainly a pretty clear path to contention for her. I don't think
100%.
I don't know. I'm not putting any stock in her beating Amanda Nunes.
Yep.
But I think somebody noted today that Holly Holm called out for a fight with her on Instagram, and that's a fight Tate has won before. It's not like Holly Holm is some young up and coming challenger, and if Miesha Tate were to get that fight and win it, Holly Holm's 39 at this point.
Yep.
If she were to get that fight and win it, she would be a more interesting title challenger than almost anyone else in that division. Right there.
No, totally agree. And I actually tweeted out earlier, I was unaware that Holm had called her out, but it makes sense to me. But yeah, I had said, you know what, I'm expecting within the next year that those two will have a rematch at some point. I think having a match in between at the very least, because going from Renault to Holm, that's a big jump, especially a 44-year-old Renault. But I don't know, somebody like Kunitskaya wouldn't be too far of a leap ahead, maybe. I don't know, something like that.
What about Irene Aldana?
I'd be okay with that.
I mean, it's not like Aldana could beat Holly Holm. So if you're trying to warm up for a fight with Holly Holm, Aldana would be a fighter to test yourself against. Can you beat this person? And if you can't, then, that next step may be just out of reach anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it gives Aldana a big name. If Aldana was the one to come out on top, and provided she makes weight. It would be that
elite name that she's missing on her resume to make her a contender.
Yep. So no, that the more I think about that, the more I think that makes sense. The thing that is promising here for Tate, she showed the classic grit that made her the champion that she was in the past. The wrestling was there, and her striking was better than ever, and I think that it can continue to improve. So I agree with you 100%. I think that she can become a contender in short order. Whether or not she can beat Amanda Nunes is another story, but I think that there's some validity behind her statement that she wants to come back and go for the belt, and I'm excited to see it.
Sure. I mean, I'm not gonna put money on her beating Amanda Nunes, but right now we're looking at Juliana Pena as a title challenger, and if Pena is about to contend for the title, Miesha Tate is, I'm more interested in Miesha Tate as a title challenger than I am Juliana Pena.
Oh, 100%.
So my only question really is just, does the UFC do they want to risk anything other than Tate against headlining proven talent from this point forward? Because at that point, then they probably will just throw her in with Holly Holm, because Tate is one of, really, once you get past Holm and Rousey, Tate was the other big draw in women's MMA.
Oh yeah.
She was one of the only other fighters to have really connected with fans on a consistent level.
Well,
so
with the legacy of Rousey, Holm beat her and Nunes beat her, but Tate was her rival. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely, I can easily see why the UFC might just look at that whole matchup right away and just say, no, that's the fight we got to make. We're not gonna put her in there and risk her losing to Irene Aldana just to blow one of a few really good quality fight night headliners we could make. But they also might not care. Who knows? That brings us to a lightweight bout. Mateus Gamrot, Jeremy Stephens, and as I said, I picked Stephens going into this fight. It was a gut pick. I think Gamrot can slow him down and grind on him for a long time, but if he has to trade with Stephens too often, is he really going to win that fight? I don't know. And then Gamrot just went out there and took him down immediately and tapped him out with the Kimura. And I mean, that was damned impressive, because for all Stephens loses, that's his first submission loss since Dean Thomas in 2007. No, Joe Lozon in 2009.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, I thought there was another one in there, but yeah. Either
Joe
way,
Lozon,
that was, what, 09?
Yeah, 2009. It has been 12 years since Jeremy Stephens lost by submission, and that's just the fourth submission of Mateus Gamrot's career. He talked about afterward, I'm a BJJ guy at heart, so, racking up more submissions, no big deal to me. And it's just this is not what you've done. This is not what anybody expected.
You throw out there that Stephens has been in there with the likes of Charles Oliveira. Anthony Pettis has been pretty slick on the ground.
Moicano, Edgar.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of guys that he's been in there that you would have expected to have submitted him before Gamrot, but no, Gamrot was wanted to do it in 12 years. So, but I mean, I'm not going to brag about picking Gamrot, because while I expected him to win, I did not expect him to just come out and shit kick Stephens the way that he did. That was impressive as all hell. And I know that I've just the fact that it was a Kimura, you rarely see those anymore, and to see it at lightweight, I think is only adds an explanation point to it. That's typically a strongman submission. So, damn.
Yep, great performance from Gamrot. I love the hype. I love, he's going on. I'm interested to see what the UFC does with him, because he's obviously he's 30. He's been a champ in KSW before this. Mm-hmm. Came in with about as much hype as a regional prospect can, or a regional fighter can come into the UFC with. And immediately took that loss to Guram Kutateladze. But now beating Scott Holtzman and Jeremy Stephens, I'm interested to see what the UFC goes from there, because those are more established UFC names that the promotion, I can easily see them bumping him up towards the edges of the top 15 off of that, even though I think, it's lightweight. So he could fight somebody like, Rafael Fiziev or Arman Sayukian, and those would be great fights, but they would also be really rough ways to try to climb your way into the rankings.
Sarukian was the name that I actually had in mind, so I'm actually really glad you said that. I think Fiziev is actually scheduled. I mean, he's with Bobby Green, but but no, Sarukian was who I thought. Maybe what's his name? Brad Riddell would be another fun one.
Sure.
There's. I'm with you. I think that it would be wise to fast track Gamrot, given the reputation that he was able to build up in KSW, and because since he took that loss to Kutaladze, I always struggle with his name, but since he took that loss, you can tell that he's gone back to camp and just sharpened all of his skills. He's come back with a fire. He's wanted to make a point in each of his last two fights.
Yeah.
I mean, beyond just subbing Stevens in about a minute, he knocked the living crap out of Scott Holtzman, and that's not an easy thing to do. So he's come out like a man on fire.
Yeah, I like it. I'm excited to see it. He's got that low single ankle pick game that's like, it's a real rarity. So it's always an interesting fresh matchup thing where it's just not a sub, or it's just not a takedown that a lot of fighters in the UFC have to face a lot. So it's always interesting to see how you can kind of change the dynamic of fights with stuff like that. And getting a win over Stevens. I know Stevens, much like Renault, is on a big string of losses, but it still means something. It's still somebody that people recognize and understand pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it's not like Stevens is losing to nobodies either. The list of the names that he's lost to is impressive. So I'm with you. It still means something.
That brings us over to another prospect who got another slightly aged prospect who got a very necessary bounce back win. Middleweight Rodolfo Vieira picking up the win over Dustin Stoltzfus, and this fight was not going as well for Vieira as the announcers wanted to make it sound like it was going. I looked at the scorecards. They were released out online, and it was 1-1 after 2 rounds. I could have easily seen it 2018 either way. But for any success he was having, he was also getting tagged up a lot standing.
Yeah.
But to see him stay composed enough and stay within himself enough to get that back take to instant sub in the 3rd round, it's a good sign. Like, I honestly, I know Michael Bisping was saying, like, it's not a psychological thing. It's just road work. You need to go out and run and you won't get tired. But the absolute overwhelming look of like almost shaking hand relief on Vieira's face in that post-fight interview, I think it is honestly, like, there's just a lot of nerves there for him.
I couldn't agree with you more. I like Bisping because he's willing to say what he thinks, and even if I disagree with that, I'm happy to have somebody that I can disagree with so long as they're being honest. Because there's definitely a lot more to it psychologically than just cardio. Running a lot to improve your cardio, I should say. But this fight was a lot to Vieira, because if he'd have come out and just immediately shot in, got a double leg on Stoltzfus in the opening minutes and then got in the sub, everybody'd say, okay, he didn't learn a thing from his last fight, because his last fight he was able to get Hernandez down and dominate him for the first couple of minutes, but then he tired. So Vieira came out, he wanted to make a point. I don't think he went for a single shot in the first round. Let's see. Yeah, he didn't go for one at all. Not unless he got that
flying knee that Stoltzfus threw at him right at the bell, where he kind of wrapped up Stoltzfus's hips after, like, as he tried to get off the fence.
Mm-hmm. So Vieira came out. He had a point that he wanted to prove. He wanted to prove he could be a viable fighter beyond the first round. He did that. I actually gave Stoltzfus the first 2 rounds. I thought he was doing more effective damage, but that doesn't mean that Vieira wasn't showing considerable improvement with his jab in particular.
They were very close rounds.
Yes. But yeah, no. When push came to shove, Vieira knew that he could very well be down on the scorecards, and he started pressing for the takedowns in the final round, and got the submission win. In many ways, the fight couldn't have gone better for him. I mean, there's obviously still room for improvement, but the final product, he proved that he could be on the first round, and that he's still exceptionally dangerous on the ground. Couldn't have gone better for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it is one of those things where he's clearly working on the right things. He's clearly put a lot of work into his boxing. He's put a lot of work into staying calm.
Yes.
And the big thing he just needs to do is spend more time fighting to try and get comfortable with it, because it's clear it still just freaks him out.
Yeah.
You know, it's still something that he is he's building himself up to do it. And then a lot of him being in the cage is just trying to get it over with as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the emotion he's got to fight, and he seems to be trying to fight it. And this seemed like a fight where he really made conscious attempts to try to fight that for himself, and it's good to see.
Yeah,
he comes out with a win. That's the best you can ask.
Exactly.
That brings us to a featherweight bout. I haven't seen the bonuses yet. I'm sure they've been posted somewhere, but I have to assume this got fight of the night. Certainly should have.
If it didn't, Quarantillo at least deserves a performance on his own, because that was holy crap awesome.
Billy Quarantillo came out and he absolutely put the screws to Gabriel Benitez.
Mm-hmm.
Just ran him over for 2 full rounds. And credit to Benitez for being as tough as hell as he was, because he almost came back and won that fight in the 3rd round.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, the thing I got to say that I really loved watching about this fight, I like watching Billy Quarantillo fight no matter what, because he's just he knows that his way to win is just by being uglier and meaner and feistier and more consistent and grittier than his opponent, and he stays on people all the time. But the thing I love to see was he finished this fight from back control with strikes while on his back on the mat. And you see so many fighters who get to that position in a fight and get stalled out there looking for the rear naked choke. And I've even almost seen fighters lose rounds with back control in ways that just shouldn't be possible. And this felt like a prime example of, look at all the things you can do when you have back control that should make this a shockingly dominant position for you every single time.
Yeah. I didn't think about it that way, but now that you've elaborated it I think you're 100% spot on. Rather than playing handsy with him, trying to snake his arm under his neck, he just was like, you know what, I'm going to blast you from back here with punches. And it was enough to get the stoppage. I think it was more of an accumulation of damage, because Benitez's dive was a complete mess. But either way, if you just hammer away at him like that, maybe you'll eventually get the opening for the choke or whatever. I think you're right. Not enough people do that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that Luis Pena fight he had with damn it. Now featherweight Steve Garcia.
Oh yeah.
And he spent the whole fight on Garcia's back.
Yep.
And got almost nothing done. Garcia punched him more over his shoulder than Pena landed on him. he got the win, and even he, after that fight, was talking about how disappointed he was in his own performance. And this just feels like this is the answer to that. This is here you have this dominant position that you should be able to keep. You can turn this into all kinds of, you can see the person that you're trying to punch and they can't see you. That should be a huge advantage.
Yeah.
So, really just a very, very good dominant performance for a TKO win from Quarantillo. Benitez put him in trouble in spots, had some cleaner punches to land, was the slicker technician at times, but Quarantillo was just absolutely unbreakable, and his wrestling was clicking a lot better than it has in most of his fights before. So he looked good.
But I do remember the broadcast had said that Quarantillo took about 7 months off in between fights, and looking at it, it looked like that he had previously been fighting about every 5 months or so at the most. So I think the fact that he was able to take some time off and mentally reset himself, it seemed to do a world of good for him, because he came out looking completely refreshed, and like you said, he just put a nearly impossible pace upon Benitez. Like Benitez, I don't know if it was just because Quarantillo was beating him so bad, or if the cut to 145 is too much for him anymore, but he looked flat in comparison to Quarantillo.
Yeah, no, he absolutely did. Yeah, and part of that too is I think that it was mentioned on the broadcast too that this was Quarantillo's first fight after getting some corrective vision surgery. True. So that might also have helped with his wrestling time, on his timing on his takedowns. Just, if he's actually got a little depth perception now, that wouldn't be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
We did just hear too from our producer that fight did win fight of the night. Thankfully, because I know everybody's like, oh no, Billy Quarantillo at least needs to earn a performance of the night, but Benitez needs to earn a bonus too for taking that kind of damage. Like, dude went through hell in that fight. I am really glad to see him.
Human punching bags need some love too, man.
Yeah. And UFC apparently handed out 6 bonuses tonight, with Tate and Gamrot also getting one, as well as Vieira. So Vieira, Gamrot, Tate, and Nascimento in the opening prelim, which we'll get to in a minute here. Great fight to kick off the main card. Closing out the prelims, Daniel Rodriguez, Preston Parsons, and Parsons looked good for like 2.5 minutes. He was landing his own shots. He was being aggressive. He's mixing it up with Rodriguez, putting him on the back foot sometimes. Really just going out there the way you have to when you're the underdog on short notice. Really just go out, throw yourself at your opponent in round 1, see what you can make happen. And then he just got like the left side of his face crushed by a 1-2. And that was kind of the end of the fight.
Yeah. Rodriguez, he's an impressive specimen in the sense that he can eat a lot of damage and he'll keep coming forward. And Parsons landed some decent shots on him. Nothing too overpowering, but enough that he could have garnered Rodriguez's respect. Rodriguez wouldn't have any, just continued to press forward. And like you said, that punch that landed, it looked like it kind of landed in Parsons' eye. It shattered him, and from that point on, he was a human punching bag. And it was just a matter of time. Everybody knew it, especially Rodriguez.
Yeah, great win for D-Rod. Puts him back on a little win streak now with that victory over Mike Perry. And honestly, too, I love Nicholas Dalby, but I'll be the first to say that fight, that win or that loss to Nicholas Dalby, pretty sketchy loss. And you could argue that Rodriguez should really be 6-0 in the UFC right now, and he's going on a really good, a shocking welterweight run for the dude that I watched tape on before coming into the UFC, and I was like, wow, he kind of brawls. He's in his 30s already. I don't know, seems fine, but nothing too exciting, and he's making some waves.
He threw out a bunch of names afterwards in the scrum for who he would like to fight. Some good ones, stuff like Chaos Williams. He threw up Alel Muhammad. That's not happening. But the one that I really liked, he threw out Michelle Pereira, and that I think would be fire.
I mean, I gotta admit, I would love to see Rodriguez versus Chaos Williams. I think that fight does seem like it would be a perfect match for their style and pace. But yeah, I mean, Pereira against anyone. My God, I hate that name so much. Such an unabiding passion.
You're just not a fan of the Brazilian or of the Portuguese language. So
it really is not a real language. It should be just stick to Spanish. I can do Spanish. This whole Spanish plus thing is not doing it for me. But yeah, I mean, Pereira is always a fun fighter. I'd love to see him fight anybody. Rodriguez, he's making waves, and I like to see it. So
yes.
This is a great win. That brings us, though, to a fight that, I mean, even the ref kind of, it feels like the ref must have known this fight shouldn't have been booked. Because, like, it wasn't the worst stoppage I've ever seen. Conejo, she went down hard. She ate a huge hammer fist to the face right after. I think if it had been allowed to go on, I don't really have any great confidence that she would have scrambled back to her feet and not just eaten a bunch of more power shots. However, she was clearly moving right away and still trying, like, up and ready to defend herself afterwards. So, you can use hindsight to say maybe the ref moved in a little quick, but at the same time, I would also say the ref used foresight to just be like, I don't know why they made this bout. These two people this is not a competitive fight, because it really did not look like a competitive fight from the moment they said go.
It didn't look competitive from the moment they signed the contract.
No.
It was one of those where I remember you said on the Vivi with Connor that it looked like both of them were just looking for fights, and Lemos, she seems like she really does have the approach of I don't care, I'll fight whoever, because that's really what this was. She shouldn't have been fighting Ruiz at all. The way that she blasted her out of there, I mean, holy crap! I'm actually surprised Lemos didn't get a bonus for that, but she proved that she shouldn't be fighting somebody on Ruiz's level. Or Conejo, I suppose I should call her. I don't know. But can we get Lemos a top 10 opponent at this point? Because she proved that she should be fighting significantly better talent.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see her fight somebody like Verna Jandiroba.
Jandiroba's scheduled with Hebus.
Oh, is she scheduled to fight Hebus now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well then maybe you go
Gedalia.
With who?
Gedalia. Claudia Gedalia.
Oh, sure, you could do Claudia Gedalia. I'd also say Nina Nunez, honestly.
Yeah. Another one that I thought would be worthwhile is Yan Jianan.
Yeah, I mean, that would be Jianan should be in title contention talk right now. So that would be if I were Jianan, I would not be taking that fight, but it'd be fun as hell to see.
Well, she is coming off that loss to Esparza.
Oh yeah, that's right. She's coming off that loss to Claudia Gadelha. I forgot that. Yeah, sure. It's still, if I were Jianan, I would not take that fight. But yes, definitely something she could do. I forgot about that loss for some reason. I was looking at my roster list here and saw her at 6-1 and thought, oh, surely she's still coming off wins. But no, that's right. Esparza went out and went all beast mode on her.
But yeah, I mean, Lemos is 34.
True.
Let's no more fights like Conejo. Let's get her somebody who is actually going to advance her up the ladder, provided she wins, because this win over Conejo does nothing for her.
Yeah, she definitely needs to be pushed harder than this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that brings us to a bantamweight bout. Sergey Morozov, Khalid Taha, and really great, smart fight from Morozov, honestly. Like, Taha showed a few times in the pocket how dangerous he can be, how hard he can hit, and Morozov just out-wrestled him, outstruck him in a lot of instances, stayed on him. It was, kind of a very Billy Quarantillo performance from Morozov.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head where you just said that he did a little bit of everything. It was like Taha was playing checkers and Morozov was playing chess. Just he was a step ahead of him in every aspect, whether it was the striking or the wrestling, and he just mixed it up brilliantly. I had picked Taha, so you're making fun of yourself for
sure
Stevens, but it's not like Taha looked very good out there either. I thought that he was going to be able to land some of his power shots, but Morozov didn't give him a chance. He befuddled him the entire time. So brilliant performance.
Yeah, and he used the takedown threat to like I was saying with the Quarantillo Benitez comparison, it's also using that takedown threat to just throw big shots with reckless abandon in the pocket, where they both started out fast on the front foot when their opponent was expecting them to wrestle, and landed huge shots in rounds to make it so that even Benitez and Taha didn't even necessarily win those fights standing when they had them at range. So great performance from Morozov. Cruised to a 30-27 win. Rough loss for Taha, who just seems to he's got such a narrow game, unfortunately for him. Like, if he's not getting somebody squared up right in front of him in the pocket just throwing down, there's so many gaps in his game.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to the real upset of the night. Malcolm Gordon, Francisco Figueiredo. I'm less surprised about this than the odds suggest I should have been. Francisco is not his brother, Davison. That said, to date, Gordon has not had really the durability to survive at this level, and he almost got clipped up hard in the first round and dropped. So he almost ran straight into trouble again to start this fight. But once he made it through that first round, all the gaps in that Figueiredo brothers style they have, which really just values single moments and bursts of dynamic offense over control or consistency or combinations. Gordon was just able to outwork him, take advantage of every mistake Figueiredo made to pull out a good, hard-fought win.
It's hard to figure out the Francisco Figueiredo. He's got a good frame for flyweight, but he's not busy enough, and he doesn't have the power and explosion that his brother has. It's possible that if he wants to try to execute a striking game from the outside and just kind of try to pick apart his opponents with jabs and kicks, maybe that'll work. But he's not even busy enough to do that. He doesn't have the discipline to keep him at the end of his strikes. And he doesn't seem to have the killer instinct of his brother either. Like you said, he hurt Gordon, but he didn't capitalize on it, and that allowed Gordon to get flowing and to get into what he does well. He got some takedowns, got some control time, and was just flat out the busier fighter.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely, it's great to see for Gordon, because you could tell how much getting a win there meant to him. Saves his UFC career for now, and for, a lot of fighters, sometimes if the UFC career goes, that can be the end of their MMA road as well. They don't, necessarily want to go back to the regional scene and try to become plug their way through as a regional guy anymore. And so it's great to see Gordon get that win. Hope that he can turn that into, even if it's only winning like 1 out of every 3 fights or 2 out of every 4, just turn it into a consistent get a couple years to try and fight at the top and improve and see what he can do. So
good win
good
for
to
him.
see for him. Because you know Figueiredo will get more fights. It's not going to be the end of the road for him.
No, far from it.
That brings us finally to a heavyweight bout. Rodrigo Nascimento, Alan Baudot, and I don't know if it was the groin kick. I don't know if it was just Baudot shooting that, blowing his load in the first round, but he looked great for one round of this fight and then got absolutely annihilated in the second round.
So let's see. Baudot, what did he come into this fight weighing? He came into the fight weighing 243. Okay, so not too bad, but either way, he's somebody who has fought at light heavyweight before. And I honestly thought he was going to go back down to light heavyweight after he got blasted by Aspinall, but stayed at heavyweight. So I don't necessarily think it's his optimal class, but comes out, lays it on Nascimento, and lands 50 significant strikes in the first round. That's for heavyweight. That is a lot. So the fact that he didn't get Nascimento out of there, I think that he wore himself out thinking that, you know what, I'm going to get him out. He didn't, and Nascimento was able to conserve enough energy that he was able to lay it on him and got him out of there. A minute and a half into the second round? Yeah,
it was a great comeback performance from Nascimento. Like I say, all kicked off by that punt in the balls that may have. But it certainly didn't help. If Baudot was feeling tired, that couldn't have been a helpful moment. I mean, I know that a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you know, if you get the 5 minutes, you can recover and stuff like that." But fighters never take that.
No.
And the truth is, too, honestly, you watch enough fights, you realize refs never really want them to use that time to rest either. Refs will start bugging fighters after like a minute or so, be like, "You ready to go? You ready to go? You ready to go?" So, you know, if they think that you're trying to milk the time for rest, they'll try to urge you back in. And so he didn't take a lot of time. He was already used a lot of energy. And yeah, Nascimento, good on him for just turning the tables, doing a lot of pressure, fighting through the strikes coming at him and biting down and putting together a good win. So I'm glad he got a bonus for it as well, too. I always love seeing fighters way down on the prelims get some bonus money. They need it. And yeah, all told, you know, it was a weird card because I'm going to say, like, the main and co-main event, like, I'm happy for Tate. It was good to see her get that comeback win. Makhachev looked dominant. Gamrot absolutely put, you know, Stevens away in a second. But it didn't make for an especially interesting main card, even despite all of the finishes. You know? Like, the Tate and Makhachev fights, they weren't thrillers. They weren't amazingly dynamic back and forth contests. Gamrot fight was over immediately. The Vieira fight was, it was 2 rounds of middleweight grapplers kickboxing.
Yeah.
The Quarantillo Benitez fight was awesome, but that really was like our peak entertainment point of the evening.
No, for sure. For sure. No, it was, like you said,
it was fine.
Definitely weird. It was definitely fine too, but
yeah,
there wasn't enough hype and name value to it to really get people excited for it. I mean, I know people like you and me circled Quarantillo and Benitez, but people like you and me are the outliers as far as people who follow the sport. You know, we're much more intensely into it than others. So who are these guys? But, you know, for what it was, I'm going to say that the fighters delivered.
Sure.
More than what was
you
expected.
can't really look at a card with 8 out of 10 fights ending inside the distance and be like, oh, that under delivered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, for for what it was supposed to be, it certainly over-delivered.
Yeah. I think that's the best you can say for it. On that note, we're going to wrap this. You can find me on Twitter at TheZaneSimon. You can find Dane on Twitter at TheDaneFox. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com. Give us a like, subscribe to our podcast, Bloody Elbow Presents, on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all that good stuff. We will be back next week for UFC on ESPN, Sandhagen versus Dillashaw. Tune in for that. On that note, we'll see you later, folks.
Thank you for listening to this Bloody Elbow Presents production. To check out more of our content, hop over to the Bloody Elbow Presents SoundCloud and iTunes pages, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is also titled Bloody Elbow Presents. We're also on Apple TV, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Overcast, Player FM, and Amazon Music. Just search for Bloody Elbow Presents, and you'll get brand new shows throughout the week, including Care Don't Care, The Mookie and Crookie Show, the Best of the Come On Now MMA podcast, Crooklyn's Corner, the MMA Vivisection, the Level Change podcast, Show Money, the 6th Round Post-Fight Show, 6th Round Retro, the MMA Depressed Us, and radio-style play-by-play for every UFC pay-per-view. You can also follow us on Twitter at Bloody Elbow and on Facebook at facebook.com/BloodyElbowBlog, and of course on BloodyElbow.com.